Welcome to Learning Photography with Duck. Here's your host, Duck.
Howdy, 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 everybody. My name is Duck. I am your host today. We are doing a special photo editing workshop today, which is a follow-up to our live event that we held on Saturday at, why do I always forget the name of, I'm getting old.
Look at my picture.
Southford Falls. Oh, I see the picture. I just, it's drawing a blank. Southford Falls. Thank you. Southford Falls. A bunch of us got together there. It was an awesome day. It was a bit hot. I do have a little bit of sunburn on the back of my neck. I don't know about you guys. But we had an awesome time, and the project was to set up our cameras and create a scene at Southford Falls using the falls as a background. There's a little covered bridge. There's a stream. There's picnic tables. It is just such a beautiful photogenic area. You set up a nice background, and then you populate that scene with multiple selves. So this is basically going to be the follow-up on how to edit those multiple shots into a single composite shot. So without further ado, what I'm going to do is walk you through from very beginning on ingest, and I will let you know on Saturday. Brian was my photographer, and he was kind of directing me. And I have not looked at those photos yet. I specifically waited until today's class to open it up. That way, you get to experience what it's like, to not only complete the workflow from beginning to end, but also kind of get my reaction to some of these images. Now, I'm going to throw Brian under the bus again. I'm going to throw myself under the bus too. So at one point, the plan was for me, I had a stick with a string on it. The plan was for me to make it look like I'm fishing in the stream. I did not realize I was very, very close to the edge, and I slipped, and I actually went into the water. The whole time, Brian is up behind the camera watching all this. So I get out of the water. I only went up to about my knee. It wasn't too bad. I get up, I look at him, and I go, I hope you got that. Brian, did you get any of those? He's not saying anything. To be fair, he was a little concerned about my safety, so he did not. But I sure wish he had. Those are those moments when, it would have made for a good laugh. But anyhow, I thought I'd share that a little bit with you. So, now, if I share my screen, I know it's a little clearer for you guys to follow along, but sometimes we have issues with video. Or you guys can just take my video and pin it, and it'll pin full screen, but the resolution is not going to be 100%. Sometimes it's difficult to read some of the fine print in the program. So I'll leave it up to you. Which way would you like me to go today? You want me to share, or you want to just pin?
I think we're going to need that detail tonight, aren't we?
Well, it depends on how familiar you are, how comfortable you are getting around Photoshop and Lightroom. So.
For me, I like seeing it when it's full screen, even though it's blurry, because then I can remember the parts, and then I go back because your video always renders properly when you're done.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah? All right, so go ahead
I'm with Brian.
and you guys can pin if there are any questions anywhere along the way. Please feel free to just stop me and I will go ahead and explain whatever is not clearly visible, or I will see if I can do something else. Okay, so, all right, so without further ado, let's go to the desktop. And we're in Lightroom. Okay. All right, so first things first. Actually, let me go back to chat. I am working on my desktop at work, and that desktop does not have a card reader built in. So I use an external card reader. You can see it here. This one's ancient, but it still works. And all I do is I just insert the card into the card reader, plug it into a USB port, and it communicates with the computer. Some people will use just this cord to connect from their computer to their camera and do it that way. I find it's a little bit slower going through the camera that way. I'm a big fan of these. Or if you're lucky enough to have a built-in card reader, which I hope my next computer will, then by all means do it that way. So I'm just plugging my card in. I don't know if you heard the bing, bing, bings there. And we're going to go over to Lightroom. And as you guys already know, I start and end my workflow in Lightroom. So we're going to come down to the bottom left-hand side, and there's a button that says Import. I go ahead and click on that, and it's going to open up a secondary window. This is my import dialog box. I'm going to, on the left-hand side, I'm going to select, you can see the device says my G drive. It's my EOS digital card. And it's going to populate it with everything that's on that card. All right. You can see I got the Q bridge on there. I got a ribbon cutting. All right. And then I have here the images from Saturday. Now, if you notice, some of them are a little grayed out. That's because they have already been imported into Lightroom. And the way I have Lightroom set up is I want Lightroom to remember what has already been imported, and it's going to check the card against what's in the library. That way I don't inadvertently import duplicates of stuff. So it's a nice little thing. All right, so I have the first one all the way down to the last one. They're already checked. I'm then going to go over to the right-hand side, and I'm just going to go down. Most of this is already set up for the way I work, so I'm not going to go into a lot of details. I do standard previews. I check for duplicates. I don't rename anything. I'll save that to when I export. I do apply a couple of presets. We've discussed presets in the past. I have my import pop and squat. This is something that I do to my images every single time, and that's adding a little bit of clarity and a little bit of saturation, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, along with my copyright information. Now here is where I will place my global keywords. Southford Falls. Oh, there it is. And you can see it's already starting to auto-populate it. So I'm just going to hit enter, and there it is. Next thing, Multiplicity. There it is, auto-populate. I hit enter, and it adds it right into my keywords. last thing I want to double check, because sometimes I change this depending on whether it's a client job or if I'm working for myself. I want to make sure that it's going in the correct folder. So everything gets dumped into my photo storage, which is a dedicated hard drive on my machine. I think it's like a 2 terabyte, 3 terabyte drive or something like that. And it's going into a folder called 2021. And it's going to create that folder according to the date the images were taken on. All right. So all of these, we don't need those. We don't need those. Okay. All right. So everything's going to go into this image, this folder here. And it looks like there's 54 frames. Once I'm happy, I go import, and Lightroom's going to do its thing. And up in the upper right-hand corner, you can see the progress. Copy and import photo. And show me the thumbnail. Okay. And so far, we're looking good. We have a complete false. We have a really tiny little. I think I should have brought it closer. All right. Well, we will work with what we have. We'll see what we can get. Let's open this one. Okay, so this is me before going in to drink. All right. I got it's actually a walking stick that I turned into a fishing pole. Okay, let's see.
You catch anything?
Yeah, wet pants. After I fell. Oh my god. Yeah, right in the face. Some people with a dog stop by. And what do we got? Behind the string back onto. I hadn't realized that I started losing. Okay. So a few shots of me, like getting that string out there. You really can't see the string. I'm hoping that it's visible. So there we go. Yeah. Oh, that one. That one. Okay. So right here, at this point, as it's loading the images, I'm looking at them. If you notice, they take a little bit of time to render, all right? But I can get enough of a sense compositionally, if it's going to be a strong composition. And this one here immediately captures my eye. So before even going any further, I'm going to do my right? And the letter P is for pick. So I've picked this one. Actually, if we look right up here, there's a photographer. Graduation photos. There's a kid in a graduation robe. We've seen them earlier, so that's pretty cool. Even though they're in the shot, it's not a big deal because we're going to be positing multiple images. We're going to be very easily getting rid of it. All right, so I picked my first one. Let's take a look. Nah, that one's interesting too.
Hey, anything?
Oh, that one's interesting too.
Am I the only one?
Yeah, it is. It is blinking in and out.
Now I can hardly see any of the.
Yeah. All right. Let me share the screen. Let me. Hold on a second. Let me set this up for sharing, and see if that does anything better. Whoa! Give me 1 second. Let's change that back to chat. Share screen. Window projector. Share. Okay. All right. Chat. Okay. Oh, there we go. Is that a little better?
Yeah, much.
All right. Looks like it's still kind of blinking in and out.
Your is not, but your image is blinking in and out.
Oh, the sharing is not.
Sharing looks solid
Oh.
to me, at least.
Okay. Good.
Everybody else, I'm just speaking for me.
All right. Okay. All right. Now, a little pop-up just popped up, and it says 54 photos were converted to DNG. This is something that I do for myself. Obviously, you don't have to, but Lightroom gives you the option of converting your RAW files to Adobe's open source RAW, which is DNG, which stands for digital negative. I do this simply because I work with other Adobe products, and if I'm working with clients who are also using Adobe products, I might be sharing files with them. So in order to maximize compatibility, I just put everything into an Adobe format. It does not lose any information. All it's doing is it's taking it from the in my case, Canon Camera Raw, and converting it to Adobe Camera Raw. All right. So it's just a little extra step that I do for myself. You don't have to. It depends on your comfort level. Okay. So back to our selections. Here's another one that looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and pick this one. Okay. Now, at this point, because it's only 54 images, I really don't worry too much about getting through the selection process very, very quickly. This is not one of those jobs where I'm dealing with, hundreds and hundreds of images. So I can go through them one at a time, and I just use the left and right arrow. All right, so we did some standing up. Here's me with a couple sitting down. I think I like the standing up ones better. It reads better. All right. I did a costume change. And here's me just kind of overlooking the waters. So the plan is that I will be at one point in the background here. He's kind of just watching the action. So this is 1, this is 2, this is 3. Oh, I kind of like that one. Back to, all right, what's going on here? It's not advancing. Where is it not advancing? There we go. Okay. Now, one of the things that we discussed on site was to give yourself options just in case. And one of the in cases scenarios that I mentioned was when you have when you place yourself in the foreground, but you also took shots of yourself in the background. You don't want the foreground image overlapping so much that you can't see the background image. And when I was up on the rock, my concern was that I might be blocking me doing the fishing. So originally I was going to go kind of like right about here. That was my initial thing, but I said, no, that's definitely going to hide it. So I needed to shift over, right? And I'm actually on the very edge of this rock, okay? So I pushed myself way over there just to make sure that I wasn't going to be blocking anything in this section here, right? So that was a conscious decision that Brian and I talked about on scene, okay? And just in case I didn't have my 3D space working completely in my favor, I moved over even more off the rock just in case. But seeing the other ones, I think will be okay. Okay. Then I did another costume change and said this one, he's just kind of chilling underneath the trees, just watching everything. All right. Oh, this is nice because he's pointing towards the fisherman. And then Brian pointed out that I'm standing underneath a no swimming sign. Of course, he should have pointed that out to me earlier and I wouldn't have gone swimming. All right. And at that point, when he pointed it out, I made like I'm going in for a swim. All right. So now these, I think I like the pointing one. Oh, that's kind of nice. That one. All right. So we're going to keep this simple. Just 3 positions. One of me fishing, one of me hiking, and one of me just casually watching the scene under the no swimming sign. Okay? And all 3 of those has this photographer right up here. All right, so I will need an additional clean plate. And I know we took some. All right. Actually, let me go all the way to the end here. Are they still there? Yeah, they're still there. Okay. So I'm going to go to the very, very beginning. All right. So good. We have oh, yeah, here we go. We have a few frames without the photographers. So I will also need one of these. Okay. Now, typically I say get yourself a nice clean plate ahead of time. You can either do it at the very beginning or at the very end, or if you think about it, do one to bracket it. One at the beginning, one at the end. That way, if any light changes or anything, you have some resources. Okay. So we have our 3 images. So I'm going to come here and I am going to go to the develop. We go back to the library. We're going to go to my attributes and I want to select just my picks. Just my picks. The images that I picked. Okay. And actually, we're going to deselect this one because I like that second one better. Okay. So these are the 4 that I selected. Okay. And you can see that the first image is a little darker than the other 3. So while I am here in Lightroom, I am going to go ahead and match the exposure to the other two. And I can do it right here from the library module because I have my quick develop panel here, which allows me to, raise the exposure. And I'm going to eyeball it. It doesn't need to be 100% perfect. I'm just going to eyeball it, and that looks pretty darn good. Okay? All right. Any questions to this point? Fairly easy, right? Now, if you are unsure of which images you want to use, because you're not quite sure how two characters are going to interact with each other, go ahead and open it up, mark it as a pic. We'll open it up and import it into Photoshop. You can make your decision at that point. Okay? It doesn't have to be anything that you need to, have concrete right at the very beginning. All right, so I have my 4 images. I am then going to open up all these 4 images into Photoshop as a stack, as a stack. So I'm going to select the first, click select the last. All right, everybody knows how to do that. You select your first image, see how it's highlighted. I press and hold the shift key. I go to my end, and I got them all selected. All right. The other thing you can do is, because I filtered out all the images that I do not want to use, I can also do Control A, and it's going to select the everything that is available to be selected. Okay. I'm going to right click, brings up this context menu, and we are going to edit in. All right, and you're going to have several options. Now, typically, if you are editing a single image, you're going to pick the top one on that pop-out menu, which is Edit in Photoshop. In this case, we're doing something a little bit different. I want to open all 4 images into Photoshop as a stack, and you'll see it. It's the last one on that little pop-up menu that says Open as Layers in Photoshop. Open as Layers in Photoshop. Okay? Now, I have Photoshop already open, so let me go ahead and switch over. All right. So right now it's reading the Camera Raw format. Remember, Lightroom is Adobe Camera Raw in a standalone package. All right, we're going to go over to, where's my Photoshop? Oh, still working. Give it a second. I gotta drag it onto my other screen here. There we go. Okay, and it's loading the last image. Okay. All right. So let me turn them off, and it opened up in order. It opened up that first image which is my blank plate. It opened up the fisherman, the hiker, and the observer. All right, the casual observer. Okay, but if you notice, it placed what I want to use as my background plate. It placed it on the top of the stack, simply because this is the way the images are numbered. All right, let me switch over to this what I want to do is I want to take that top image and drag it down to the bottom, and that's going to be my background plate. So if I turn off all the other images, all right, this is what I'm going to use to build my composite on. Okay? Now, the reason I do this is because now at this point, all I have to do is worry about the individual person in each succeeding file. I don't have to worry about color correcting or light correcting any of the background elements from any of those other shots. Okay? So this becomes kind of like my template, my base template. Now, the other way you can do this, if you don't have Lightroom, you can open up Adobe Camera Raw, and you can load the 4 images that you want to use into Adobe Camera Raw, do your little tweaking in there, and then open them up as a stack in Photoshop. So you can do File. Let's see if I can remember how to do this. File, scripts. Are these coming up? Yeah, okay. Load files into stack. All right, load file into stack, and it will automate. It will basically do exactly what I just did with Lightroom, but it will do it without having to go through the Lightroom process. Okay. Hopefully that helps if for those of you who do not have Lightroom. All right, so now it's time to get to work. I have 3 people that I want to populate my scene, and I'm going to give you slight variations on each one of these. Okay? Whichever one feels the most comfortable for you is the one that you should use. But I'm going to give you some options simply because, as you know, in Photoshop, there are multiple ways of getting to the same conclusion. All right. First thing I'm going to do is put our Mr. Fisher. Oh, no. We'll do this one first. We'll work from the bottom up. Okay. We're going to work from the bottom and add each consecutive layer. Okay, so we have our casual observer. Let me select that. Okay, but if you notice right now, it's a full frame. So we have those people in the background. We have a little bit of a lighting difference on that foreground bush here. You can see if I turn it off, there's some shift. Okay. Because we're only concerned with just the person in the image, I'm not going to worry about all that other stuff. Okay. The one thing I do suggest, if you're not sure if your camera stayed stationary the whole time, one added step that you can do is select all your layers and go File. Hold on, let me see if I can remember. Edit. Auto align layers. Okay. And I just usually keep it to auto. All right. Let it do its thing. Usually takes only a couple seconds. And if there's any discrepancy from one frame to another, I'm sorry, what?
Now, could you repeat that last step to auto align?
Sure. You're going to go, can't do it while it's doing, but you're going to go Edit, and in the drop down, here we go, Edit, Auto Align Layers. All right, so you're going to go Edit, Auto Align Layers. All right, make sure your layers are selected. I'm pretty sure they all have to be selected. I'm not 100%. I usually select them all just in case. Okay, now you can see that there was actually a little tiny shift. You can see there's a little sliver. I don't know if you can see it. There's a little sliver in this corner. There's a little sliver in this corner. All right. That's showing some of the background. It means that it had to tweak one or more of my images in order for them to get aligned. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and turn those first 3 layers off. We're going to concentrate on this guy. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to zoom in to the area that I want to work on. Okay? And we're going to work in a non-destructive manner. So for this process, I'm going to be using a mask. Okay? Now, if you see some of the tutorials on YouTube on compositing, one of the things that they first do is they will go ahead and apply a mask. Okay? And then they will tell you to go ahead and invert the mask. All right? So when you invert the mask, it makes the mask black and it hides everything. And then they tell you to go ahead and grab a brush, white as your foreground color. All right, let me get a better brush here, hard round brush. All right, and then start painting yourself back in. And I always thought this was stupid because you can't see what the hell you are painting back in. You have to rely on your memory of where you were and what you were doing. So I always thought this was a little strange. Okay, so let me go ahead and remove that mask. Okay. I do it a little bit differently. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and make a mask. Okay. I'm going to pick a brush. All right. And even though it says hard round, the one thing I want you to notice is that I never use a full hard round brush. My hardest brush will always be about 80% because I want a tiny little bit of feathering along the edge in order to blend nicely. I don't want a hard brush. Okay. I am then going to select black as my foreground color. Black as my foreground color. And in the mask, black hides that part of your layer. So as soon as I start painting, you can see that I am disappearing. Now, because I can still see myself in the frame, and as I paint on my mask, I can see the change. I know exactly where my brush is. I'm going to make it a little smaller. I know exactly where my brush is and how far I have to go to paint myself out. Make sense? There's none of that guessing as to where I am. Right? And because all the layers are lined up, you can see that the background between the current plate, right, which is this one, and the background plate lines up. All right? Everything that I'm erasing, I am showing my base layer. I'm showing this layer underneath. All right? So here, let me do one thing. I'm going to do a temporary, just for illustration. This is not part of this. I just want to show you something. Okay? I'm going to go to my red channel, and I'm going to go, okay? This is just so you see, as I erase, all right, that underlying layer is coming through, all right? Now, I do it differently than a lot of tutorials online, okay? Because here, I can see exactly where I need to brush in order to select all of me. Now, we were fortunate, and there was a lot of nice shades, so I don't have to worry about shadows. But when you're doing this effect, the other thing you have to be concerned about is shadows that you cast in the scene. And if there's any shadows, you're going to have to also do the shadow, okay? All right, let me get rid of that temporary curves adjustment, okay? So now I'm gone. That tells me that I did a really nice job of selecting my image. So now I'm going to come to the mask. I'm going to invert my mask, and I suddenly appear in the scene. It's as simple as that, okay? And I can just, if there's anything I missed, all right, I probably should have zoomed in a little bit, okay? I can fix it here, okay? But getting a composition is as simple as that, all right? So if I turn that layer off, I disappear. If I turn it back on, there I am, all right? Simple enough, right? Okay, now, there's a benefit to this process, and you can see how fast I did that technique and how simple that technique was. So now you guys have a tool in your toolbox. You should have no excuse about doing composites now, right? Okay. The problem with this technique is it only works when there is no overlap, all right? There is nothing that, there's no interaction with this character and another character. I'm not placing another character in front of it. That is when it tends to get a little bit trickier, because when you are taking something that has an edge that overlaps something else, you have to be very careful about how you create your edge. And we'll get that in a minute, okay? Also, this works because my background of my base plate is the same as the background in what I am compositing into. All right? So I can be a little sloppy with my painting, and it doesn't matter because I'm painting the same scene into the same scene. This won't work if you're painting in, let's say you took a picture of yourself in your studio against a blank wall, and you want to put yourself into this nature scene, all right? At that point, you have to be a little more refined with your edge. And that's the next one we're going to do. But any questions about this very quick and dirty brush-in technique? We all good? All right. The next one, we're going to, I'm going to rearrange my order. Next one I'm going to do is Mr. Fisherman. Mr. Fisherman, okay? For this one, I can do that brush technique, and it'll be, you know, very simple. Actually, you know what? Let me do the brush technique for this guy too. And I'll show you the advanced technique on that third guy. All right, so let me go ahead and zoom in. Okay. And this might present a little bit of a challenge. We'll see, because the waterfall here, because it's a moving object, is going to be different than the waterfall there. All right. But maybe not by enough. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and create a mask. Select my brush, hardness at 80, right? The size is going to be dependent on your subject. And of course, left bracket, right bracket to make it bigger or smaller, okay? I'm going to have black as my foreground color, and I'm just going to brush myself out of existence on this plate. All right. Everybody understand what I mean by plate? That's an old term. Okay. Oh, all right. So now, here we go. Let's see if we can zoom in here. Okay. This is what I mean by you know, having something that's moving, not lining up from one plate to another, okay? You can see all my brush marks right along the edge because the water running behind on frame 1 in comparison to frame 2 has changed, okay? So we're gonna need to clean that up. We'll clean that up after I invert my I invert my scene or my mask. Okay. Now all I got to do here is the string. So I'm gonna go wrong way, make this small, come down here, and I'm just going to erase very sloppily. All right. You can see I'm not really being very careful here, all right? I'm just going to go ahead and erase, and all the way down to the bottom. Good. Now that I am gone, I'll go ahead and invert, Control or Command I if you're on a Mac, Control I. Inverts it, and there I am. Okay, so now when we zoom into that pole, you can see that edge. Okay, so for this, I'm going to still use a brush. Okay, my brush, but now instead of a hard round brush, I'm going to use a soft round brush. Okay, soft round brush. And I want to, all right, hardness is at 0, that's fine, okay? And let's just make the size a little bit bigger, all right, not too big. And using black, okay, I'm still using black hides, I'm going to brush and very carefully blend that edge. Using a soft brush, okay? And I'll only do it where it needs it, okay? Now here, looks like there's a gap. So what I might do in this situation is bring some of the foreground element into my background. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to white as my foreground color. The letter X on my keyboard switches it, all right? So if you don't know that shortcut, X toggles between foreground and background color. I'm going to select white, and I'm going to go ahead and paint in and just make that look a little bit like it's supposed to be there. Okay? and then go back to black as my foreground color and just clean up that edge. And all I'm doing is I'm softening up that edge between the hard edge and the soft edge, all right? So that it's not as noticeable. And I am staying well clear of myself in those situations. All right. Now, I'm zoomed in a lot. So you can see some of that discrepancy. But when you zoom out, it's not as obvious. All right. So you don't have to go too crazy in this respect. Okay. But you also don't want to make it too obvious. All right. Especially if you decide you're going to print any of these images. All right. So I'm going to do the same thing to my string. I'm just going to soften up those edges, blend them in a little bit. Okay. You can really see that I'm using a walking stick. It's a little more obvious in this shot. Okay. As we get away from the water, though, you can see that you can't really detect that edge. Right? It's only where there's water because because of the movement. Okay. All right, a little clean up there, clean up there. All right, I'm not gonna fuss too much over the cleanup, but there it is. Okay. And everything else. Everything else looks good. All right. So quick and dirty. One where you really didn't have to worry about your edge. This second one had to kind of worry about your edge a little bit. All right, so now the third one, he's a little further up close. Okay, and if you want to check how it interacts with your characters that you previously composited in, all right, you can do the quick on, quick off, quick on, quick off, all right, method, you know, kind of like what animators use. But another way you can do it is with that layer selected, you just turn your opacity down, all right, so that you can see all three, and we are good. All right, I don't have to worry about the hiker covering up my fisherman, so we're good. But we're going to do this one a little bit differently. We're going to go ahead and zoom in. What the heck am I doing? First one, zoom. There we go. I'm going to zoom in, all right, and I'm going to go ahead and zoom in quite a bit. I want to be able to see my edges, all right, and what we're going to do is we're going to make a selection around the hiker, all right, and we're going to use the lasso tool. And the lasso tool is one of the selection tools that I learned very early on. And to be honest, I sometimes prefer it over the pen tool because I am so comfortable with that lasso tool that I often work faster with the lasso tool than I do with the pen tool. However, the pen tool offers you some flexibility that the lasso tool doesn't have. But I'm not going to get into the pen tool simply because that tool is very awkward to get to learn. It's vector based. It's not raster based. So just to keep things easy for you guys, we're going to concentrate on the lasso tool. Okay. And the lasso tool I have in my toolbox right up here. Like the name says, it looks like a lasso that an old cowboy will use. Okay. Now with the lasso tool, you have some settings available to you. And they're going to be up in your settings bar up at the top. All right. The first you're going to see is a series of squares. A single square, two squares that are conjoined, two squares that are look like they overlap, and two squares with a difference. The ones you have to be concerned with the most are the first three. The first one is a single selection. So when I make a selection with that lasso tool, you can see the marching ants here. If I were to make a second selection, it will delete my first selection and work on that second selection. All right. So obviously this can pose some limitations if you're trying to work on something that's complex. So what I like to do is I like to go to the second one in, which is the add tool. Add tool. So if I make a selection, it's going to make the marching ants. But if I make a second selection, it is not going to destroy that first selection. It's actually going to add to it. And I can combine the two by simply adding to that selection. Okay? So you can kind of see how this kind of sort of works, where you can nibble away at your selection. All right, so if you have, for example, if you're working with a mouse, your mouse movement may be a little restrictive. All right, also because I am zoomed in, I can only work on a small portion of the image before I have to go ahead and move to a new location. All right. So being able to nibble away at making your selection is a nice, simple, I wouldn't say error-free, but it reduces your chances of making mistakes a lot more. Now, the nice thing about this is that if we do make a mistake and I go outside my area, all I have to do is press and hold the Alt key, all right? The Alt key, I don't know if you can see my cursor. If you notice that it has a little plus symbol, meaning that we are in the add mode. As soon as I press the Alt key, it changes to a negative sign, all right? So now it becomes the subtract mode. And you can see up in the toolbar, it actually changed from the add to the subtract, all right? And then if I go back, if I release the Alt, it goes back to my add. If I hold it down, it goes to the subtract, okay? So pretty straightforward. Any questions about the basics of how this tool works? We're good? Okay. Take your time. And the one thing you're going to notice is, because in this particular situation, I don't have to worry about the background of this image bleeding into the background of my plate image, my base plate, because they're all the same. I don't have to worry about it. So I don't have to be overly concerned about following that edge. But a rule of thumb is that you want to give yourself a little bit of room, 1 or 2 pixels in from the edge, all right? So if we were to zoom in very, very, very tightly, oh, that's a little too tightly, all right? You'll notice that there is a blend. There's 2 to 3 pixel blend between my foreground, the edge of my hat, to the white of the waterfalls, okay? This is called iolizing, all right? And all it is how light behaves in nature. Light tends to bounce off of surfaces in weird ways. It tends to bend on some surfaces. Things like glass and metal tend to bend light a little bit. So you get that light leak around objects, and you're going to get this 2 to 3 pixel width blend between one edge and the other, okay? So what we want to do is, with our lasso tool, is we want to try to be within that blend range, okay? Now, in this particular case, we don't have to worry too much about it, like I said, simply because our foreground and our background are all the same. All right, but typically, if you're doing something like, if you shoot something on a green screen and you're compositing it into like a nature scene, if you don't cut in enough, you're going to get that green fringe, which is just going to make it look like an obvious cut and paste, okay? So in this case, we can work rather loosely. The other thing that's nice about the lasso tool is that if we press and hold the Alt key and we release the button, it will create a straight line until you press it down again. So we can click, make a line, click, make a line, click, make a line, click, make a line, all right? Click, make a line. And then as soon as we release the Alt key, it's going to make a selection. All right, in this case, a very crappy selection because I was all over the place. But if you're working with like items that have straight lines, this is a good way of getting a nice, clean, crisp line. All right, so the Alt key is going to be your friend. All right, and you're going to make your way around the entire image. All right, and the way I normally do it is I will work around the perimeter. All right, all the way around. I'm not too concerned about the middle part. All right, and I'll take it in strides. All right, now here's another way you can use your the Alt tool to create straight lines. All right, let me get rid of this. Okay, I have a long curve here of my arm. I can go ahead and click. I press the Alt key. I lift, I unclick, and I now have my straight line, right? I can make a series of short straight lines following that curve. And I've made a fairly decently smooth curve. using just straight lines. Obviously, the tighter the curve, the shorter the straight lines have to be. The longer the curve, you can work a little bit faster. So again, press and hold the Alt key, release your mouse button, all right? And whenever you move the mouse, it's just going to create, oops, let me back that up. Click, 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 click. So I'm just using a series of straight lines. And there I go. Oh, what happened? I think I released one button too early. All right. Click, 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 straight. Click. All right. And the nice thing is, even though I'm making straight lines, at any point I can continue doing just a regular. All right. All right. Any questions on how that tool works? Straight lines, make my selection. All right. And then you're just going to go ahead and work your way all the way around yourself. All right. This method, one other thing that I need to point out, because I almost forgot it, is the next one here is feather edge. All right. So we have anti-alias on. Okay. We are going to go ahead and feather this about 0.5 to 1. So you can do 0.5. I don't know if it'll do 0.5. Yes, it will. All right. Anywhere between half a pixel to a single pixel is typically going to give you that nice soft edge transition when you make your selection. Okay. And of course, select and mask is going to be selected. All right. So what happens at this point is that we're going to have a selection. Let me just make something really quick here. All right. You're going to have a selection with marching ants. Once you have your marching ants, you just come down to the bottom and I'm going to go ahead and you can make a selection. Now, if you just hit your mask selection, watch what happens to the marching ants. Okay? Everything around it disappears. All right? And at this point, you'll need to go in and fine-tune your edge. Right? And unlike the brush effect, sometimes it's very easy to miss things, especially if there's like little holes that you have to punch into your selection, right? So like, for example, if in the crook of my elbow, if I was able to see the background, I may need to go in there and remove that little bit. But it's very easy to forget, something. And in that case, you will need to go ahead and modify your mask. So all you do is you make sure you select your mask, Control-I inverts it, all right? And it will show you everything you missed. And at that point, you can go ahead and, do your lasso, whatever you want to do. Okay. And that's going to create a selection. All right. And what we're going to do is we're going to fill that selection with black, because again, black hides. Okay. So you can see that black in this case is my foreground color. White is my background color. All right. So if I just hit the delete key, all right, it's just going to delete everything within that selection. So if I hit the delete key, it deletes everything, and it's basically like filling it with white, which is not what we want. We want to fill it in with black, because black hides, we're looking to hide. So again, the Alt key, Alt Delete, will fill it in with that foreground color. All right. Now, if your foreground color is white and your background color is black, that's going to work a slightly different way. If I do my Alt Delete, notice that it now revealed everything, right? Because that Alt Delete key operates on which color is in the foreground and which one is in the background, okay? So if you use that Alt Delete key and you're like, oh, I don't know what the heck happened, all right, check that, okay? You can also use Control Delete, okay? Control Delete works with the background color, all right? So in this case, my background color is black. Control Delete works with the background color. Alt Delete works with that foreground color. All right. Yes, it's a little confusing. Yes, it takes a little while to get used to that concept. But after a while, after using this for a few, you get to learn these things. Okay. So just remember that your key is, the key that you press is going to be dependent on your foreground and background color. Okay. All right. And then I want to get rid of the marching ants. I do Control D, Command D for you Mac people, and it gets rid of the marching ants. Okay. You can also revert to cleaning up your mask with your brush tool. Okay. Black hides, white reveals. Okay. All right. And then invert your mask. Everything that was hidden is shown again. All right. Oops. Go back. Fix that up. All right. So you can see that one is a little bit more of an advanced method of making selections. But the nice thing about it is if that is overlapping anything, it's going to eliminate that fringing, that color fringe, and it's going to allow you to make a crisp edge against whatever you're compositing against. All right. And I'm sure I probably lost you on this one. So any questions on any of these so far? It's quiet, so I think I burnt brains.
I was going to say I've known about the lasso tool for a long time, but I was always in first grade.
Yeah.
Up until today, I really didn't understand how to erase stuff. You know, like if I covered one up, it would start over, which was, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. So going back to, oh Christ, the early days of Photoshop, you know, everything was destructive. Yeah, you have to be careful using that tool. Yeah.
So Doug, were you using your tablet or a mouse to do that?
I was using a tablet, but you can very easily do this with a mouse.
Okay. Just checking.
I have done it with a mouse. All right, so I know it's very easy to do with a mouse. Okay.
Isn't it true that no matter what technique you use, since these things are masked layers, you can go back in and paint and do whatever
That's
bring
correct.
that into whatever
Yep.
needs to be done.
Just remember that black hides your on your current layer, and white reveals your current layer. Right. So here I am. I'm painting white to reveal my hiker.
Are you sharing them?
Oh, it would help. All right. I'll just share it
Just
this
look
way.
over your shoulder.
Yeah. There we go. Okay. So yeah, you can very easily clean up. All right. Now, which technique you use, obviously, is going to be dependent on your skill level, your current skill level, and how complex your composition is. Okay. When I'm doing compositions where I have one person overlapped another person, right, that edge is critical. So at that point, I'll use the lasso tool just so I can get a clean edge. Okay. All right. So that pretty much, in a nutshell, is the only technique you need to learn to do these multiplicity composites. All right. Obviously, once here, let me do a quick and dirty. Oops, wrong one. What are we doing? Delete. Good. There we go. Okay. Now, once you have your composite and all your people into your scene, at this point, you can go ahead and do your curves adjustments. Ooh, what am I doing? Open up my shadows a little bit, maybe drop my highlights. Okay. All right. Maybe even do something like a, let's do a gradient map. Whoa. Let's see. Let's not. I know what. Let's do. Let me get rid of that. Let's do. What do I want to do? A photo filter. There we go. We'll do a nice warming filter. There we go. That's before, that's after. Yeah, there you go. Make it a little bit more summery looking. Okay. So we got my curves. Open up my shadows a little bit more. There we go. If you want to do a sky replacement, you can do a sky replacement. Okay. If you want to do a little dodging and burning, all right, let's do a little dodging and burning. All right, I'm gonna make another. Actually, here, let me go back to sharing my screen. Projector, share. Whoa! Come on. Where's it go? Okay. I'm gonna make a curves adjustment. Let's see. And we're going to drop my exposure. Okay. And on my curves layer, I'm going to invert it. I'm going to select a gradient, and we're going to go from foreground color. And I want my foreground color to be black. All right. So we got a gradient, and we're going to do gradient going maybe about Oh, no. Foreground's going to be white. I got a black mask. All right, there we go. Oh, we want linear. We want linear. There we go. And we're just going to burn that bottom. All right. So little burning right in the forefront there. There you go. That looks a little better. Okay. If we want to maybe burn this area up here, maybe, let's see, can we use the same one? Yeah, let's burn that down. Okay. All right. There we go. And of course, you know, you can fool around with it to your heart's content. Let me.
So you could also crop this overall picture down.
Yeah, that's actually what I'm going to do right now.
We're going to take out some of the greenery on the right side there, that kind of in the foreground.
Yeah. There you go.
Because you've essentially brought all of the layers into the primary layer.
No, they're still individual layers. All right. If you look at my layer stack on the right hand side, you'll see there's my base layer. There's my my watcher, my fisherman, and my hiker. All right, and I can still turn those off individually.
Right. Okay. Good.
Okay. So all of this was done non-destructively. All right. Now, the other thing that you can do is, if you find that there's an alignment issue, you know, because of maybe line of sight between one character and another, maybe a scale difference, all right? You can manipulate those things. You can move, all right? I can take my foreground guy, all right, my little, my hiker, okay, and I can move him if I wanted to, all right? And once I move him, of course, I have to make sure that I have a very, very clean edge, because otherwise you'll see the misalignment. Okay? So at this point is where having a very clean edge, all right, that you get from the lasso tool comes into play, all right, where it doesn't work with that quick and dirty brush, all right. You can see all the misalignments here, all right. Okay. The quality of your results, it's inverse to the time spent into it, all right. If you put a little bit of time, you're going to get really bad quality. If you put in a lot of time, you're going to get really good quality. All right. There we go. Okay. And actually, you can see right up here at the top of the hat, that's really standing out. Okay. That's where I just very quickly brushed it in. All right. But here, where I used the lasso tool, look how clean that is. All right. So it pays to put in a little bit of effort. Yeah, the lasso tool is a little time consuming, but you're going to get really, really clean cutouts. Okay. Now, the one thing I did not discuss, and and we got a little bit of time, is the pen tool. The pen tool is similar to using the lasso tool, but it operates as a vector-based tool. All right. So what I mean by vector-based is when I click, I gotta have something selected here. When I click, it's going to create a point, and then when I click again, it's going to where is it? Click. What's going on here? Oh, I see why. I'm working on an invisible layer. All right. Click. All right. Makes a line. Click. Makes a line. Click. Makes a line. All right. Let's go with a shape. All right. And then once I click back to the end, all right, it's gonna close the loop. And the nice thing about this is I can manipulate these individual points, all right, and make changes to my. I can do this. Why am I having a hard time with this? I can manipulate my selection after the fact. Okay? So, it takes some getting used to. The learning curve is a little bit frustrating. All right? And here's the thing. My background in digital art is as a vector artist. I've done it for like 25, 30 years. I am very used to manipulating vector lines. I hate using the pen tool in Photoshop. Don't ask me why. I hate it, right? It does not behave the way most vector tools in other programs work. So for me, it's a little clunky. I can't very easily add another point if I needed to. All right, I have to make all kinds of jump through all kinds of hoops, but it can be done. All right, so the benefit to a pen tool, however, over the lasso tool is multifold. Obviously, I can go ahead and control the individual points. Come on. I'm working on a base layer here. All right. I can control the individual points and make my selections that way. And if I need to shift it a little bit left or a little bit right, it's very easy to do. The other thing is, once I have a path, I can go over to my Paths tab right here, Paths, right? And you can see that I can save these, right? All I have to do is name it, and I can save it. And the nice thing about that is I can make a selection out of that path. Okay? So let me go ahead and move that. All right, there we go. See, I have a selection. Okay, and at any time I can go back to that. There's the previous one I did. I can go ahead and make selections and go back without having to recreate that selection over and over. All right. So there are benefits to working with a pen tool. It's just for me. I work faster with the lasso tool, all right? And one day we'll actually do a full-fledged class on the pen tool. And I have touched about on the pen tool in the past. But for now, stick with the lasso tool because it's easy to see what you're doing. It's easy to make corrections while you're working on it. And it does the job effectively. Okay? All right. So anyhow, now that you know how to put these images together, I want to see what you guys created on Saturday and post them to the Facebook group, share them on social media, let everybody know. And looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with. All right? All right, let me stop sharing. I need to be looking at the back of my head there. Okay. Any questions?
I have a question.
Okay.
Yeah, in the setup, I did not get a blank background image.
Okay.
So all my images have somebody in them. So should I do something ahead of time to come up with a blank background?
Okay. Well,
to make that a...
You saw in my particular case, the people stayed pretty much the whole time you were taking photos of me, right? So having that blank plate plays a role in being able to remove them from every other composite. Now, if you have somebody in every single shot, if they are in different positions, then it's not a big deal. You just mask out all the areas they're in and they're gone. Okay? So if there's people on the left and people on the right, you just use the part of the photo that's blank on the right for the first one and on the left for the second one, and it completely removes everybody. So, but hopefully now you understand why it's nice to have that blank plate. It makes things a little bit easier.
I forgot.
No, you know what? I don't blame you. I still forget, so don't worry about it. It's very easy to do. But obviously the more you do it, the easier the process becomes, and you're no longer running a million things in your head, because everything now becomes a little bit more routine. For you guys, this Saturday was, for some of you, it was the first time you really, got down to the nuts and bolts of a multiplicity composite. So there's a lot to consider. But hopefully the next time you attempt it, you now have some tools in your tool bag, and you can say, oh yeah, I remember, I have to watch out for this. I have to, make sure I do that. Got to get that background plate. All right. How many of you have opened up your images already and looked at them? Yeah. Okay. Good. In those series of images that you've opened up so far, have you seen anything that you feel might present a problem for you? Anything that's looking like an anticipated problem?
You're meaning with compositing it together.
Yeah. No? You're comfortable so far? Everything that was explained, everything that you also know that's in your tool bags of tricks? Okay. Awesome. Then I look forward to seeing your creations, guys. All right. If at any point you have an issue, feel free to, either email me or contact me through the Facebook page. Okay. All right, Natasha, I know you walked into part 2 of a 2-part series. So hopefully you weren't too lost. But maybe one day we'll get you on a actual live photo shoot with us. They're a lot of fun, right, guys?
Yeah, I'm not big on Photoshop, but I'm going to actually try some of the things that you mentioned.
Okay. Just so you know, even though I'm teaching using Lightroom and Photoshop, a lot of these techniques are very basic techniques that just about any good photo editor should be able to handle. All right. As a matter of fact, I just learned that there is a free web-based Photoshop clone that's available. It's web-based, so you have to use it online. And it's not the Photoshop CC version. It's like, think of it as an earlier version Photoshop. But it can do layers. It can do, layer blends. It can do a lot of things that Photoshop does. So if you don't have Photoshop, hey, there's a free alternative. And I'm looking to do it. It's called PhotoP, PEA, photop.com. And I just learned about it today, so I haven't had a chance to play with it. But, maybe I'll do an episode where we talk about, free alternatives to Photoshop for those of you who don't have Photoshop. Also, there are free alternatives to Lightroom. There's Darktable. That is literally a Lightroom clone that is free. It's open source. So you don't need Adobe products, right? A lot of those tools built into those programs are very similar, if not identical to Photoshop. So there's multiple ways of doing this, all right? Anyways, thank you guys for joining me on Saturday for the actual shoot. And again, thank you for joining me this evening as we discuss how to put your images together. We will see you next Monday for our Lightroom class.
Real quick question out the door. What was the model tablet that you just jumped on? You replaced your Wacom.
Oh, I replaced it with a Huion.
What was the model? I was looking at them today.
I
950 would work for me.
I'd have to get back to you off the top of my head. I don't remember the model number. Yeah.
Doug, can you recommend a card reader? Mine busted this weekend.
Yeah, get the $10 one at Walmart. That's what I do. Don't go crazy. Card readers, they're all pretty much the same. It's they're cheap. They're inexpensive. Best Buy has card readers. Just make. I get the multi-card reader, and you can see that there's only 3 slots on this. Okay, I only use 2 slots. The third one's never seen a card in it because I only use 2 different types of cards in my camera. I have the flash cards and I have the SD cards. That's all my cameras use. So that's all I need for my card reader. And this is a cheap Targus. All right, this thing's got to be about 15 to 20 years old. All right, it's probably USB 1, USB 1 technology. So I don't even think it's USB 2. That's how old it says, and it still does its job. So.
Have a good night, Doc.
All righty, Bonnie. Thank you. You too. Take care, everybody. Stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you for watching Learning Photography with Duck. Brought to you in association with Milford Photo. your local full-service camera store. Located in downtown Milford, Connecticut, Milford Photo offers you a personalized shopping experience. From the latest camera gear to printing and framing services. And, of course, educational workshops to teach you the finer aspects of photography. Don't forget to tell them Duck sent you.